Welcome back to another episode of the Beyond the Blueprint podcast, powered by Lapolis Electric. I'm your host, Stephen Marcelino, the Vice President of Sales with Lapolis Electric, and I'm here today with Delaney Wallace. He is an outsourced CFO, very intelligent man, but Delaney also does have plenty of accolades in the athletic and powerlifting world, and I'd like to turn it over to you, Delaney, to talk a little bit about those accolades and your accomplishments over time between football, powerlifting, and the different endeavors you've taken in life.
Absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate you having me. Yeah, my road and the different lanes that I touch kind of spider out in 1,000 different directions. Like you said, played college football at a pretty high level, small D2 school, Pace University in New York, and had the opportunity to take my shot at the NFL dream. Came a little bit short, and that's what kind of pushed me into the finance world. Along that journey, I somehow, in the journey to get back into shape after you're sitting behind the cubicle in the office for hours on end, stumbled into this sport called powerlifting. And 5-6 years later, 2 world championships later, flying out to South Africa, Malta, wow. the UK, a world title or 2. Just life has changed on that front and allowed a lot of different abilities to do different things there. So I do some public speaking on the finance realm as well as just general motivation as well.
Wow.
But also through that, on the finance side, through my journey, there's a couple of different avenues or ways that you can enter the field, right? You enter the insurance side, you enter the broker dealer side, you enter on the investment side, or you can do planning. And really, I just found that, that saying, if you give somebody a hammer, they think everything's a nail.
Yeah.
Right? But if you have a whole toolbox, you can really assess and really build whatever it is that the client wants you to build in the way that they want you to build it.
Correct.
And so I always just started to branch off into every single sector and realm. And eventually I ended up getting my SEPA, Certified Exit Planner designation, to essentially help business owners use what is their greatest asset to actually launch themselves to the next part of their career, their life, right?
Wow.
Most people don't think about the aftermath of owning a business. What do I do when I finally want to hang up the cleats, if you will?
So what does that process look like when you're helping an owner kind of make that exit strategy, so to speak, or that next step? What does that look like?
So for me, good exit planning is just good business practice, right? And so that's where the outsourced CFO work comes into play. And so we take care of the bookkeeping, we take care of the accounting, we take care of the controller work, business consulting, the whole 9 yards, all in one place. And the reason for that is if your financial advisor and your accountant are on 2 different sides of the table and they have 2 different thought processes on how things should be run, well, you're in the middle trying to figure out who's right or who's wrong, right? And so by having one collective team handle all of these different aspects, one, you as a business owner aren't talking to 50 different people trying to figure out where you need to relay information to, but everybody's rowing in the same direction. But also that process, it just starts from the very core of it, right? It's not just about the exit, but it's also about the entry. So even from startup, if we build the company the correct way, the infrastructure is going to be easier for you to scale the business, but also it's going to be easy for you to transfer the business over to somebody else, right? I know nothing about electricity, nothing at all. And so if I want to buy your business, but it's not transferable to me and I need you and your intellect and your ability in order to run it, the second that you pass the business off to me, it's worthless, right?
Yeah.
And so how do you create the infrastructure, one, to allow the business owner to remove themselves and be able to have a vacation every once in a while and not have the house burned down, but also build the business in a way that it's profitable and you can transition it onto a third party so that it can still continue to run and you actually have that ability to, use it to either retire yourself, buy a new business, real estate, whatever the case may be.
Very interesting.
Most business owners aren't, a one single business type of person. They're probably bouncing around different fields and sectors.
So what type of businesses are you typically working with? Is there a specific vertical market you like to work with, or is it kind of just whoever's in need of your services?
Right. It's a little bit of whoever's in need. I find that it's the business that isn't big enough to hire somebody for $300,000 a year to sit in a desk and be the in-house CFO, but big enough and complex enough that the business owner itself doesn't want to get bogged down with doing their own bookkeeping, figuring out their own taxes, figuring out where they should move employees to make the business more optimal. So it's that sweet spot between, hey, we just started up and we're not making any money, to, okay, hey, we're 20, 30, 50 million in revenue. And okay, it's getting to the point where I can't do it myself, but I can't stomach paying somebody $300,000 a year to sit here all day, every day, and just do that one job. And so it's that in between market there, I'd say.
Interesting.
Absolutely.
So backtracking, you mentioned you're two-time world champion in powerlifting. I'm guessing those were gold medals that you
Absolutely.
received.
Yeah.
And was that on behalf of the United States that you won those? Or
Yeah. So
Wow.
I guess to give you a little bit on that process.
And I'm
So
going to dovetail this question into another question. That's why I set it up
Absolutely.
like
No,
this.
no,
But
it's all the setup.
I'm really interested in hearing about, and I'm sure everybody listening is really interested to hear, because you said it like, yeah, no big deal. I won two world championships. I'm like, 2 world championships. The only thing I could potentially win a world championship is like an eating competition or something if I'm lucky. So tell us a little bit about that.
We all have our strengths, right? But yeah, no, the process for that is really interesting. I mean, I think I started powerlifting maybe like in 2018, like after I finished football, and I just wanted something to do. I wanted to not be that out of shape finance guy, with the, beer belly
Yeah.
and the pocket square and the whole 9 yards. And bounced into the sport, ended up doing like my first powerlifting meet just by a friend convincing me to, broke a couple of small like state records, which mean nothing, right? And just slowly but surely, like you go from a local meet to a national meet, you finally win a national meet, then you get the opportunity to be selected to be a part of Team USA. And so my first world championship in 2022 was in South Africa, and
Wow.
it was probably one of the greatest experiences of my life.
That's
Get
so
to be
awesome.
on Eurosports, the Olympic Channel, the whole 9 yards. You got USA across your chest, and got to run that gauntlet again and go to Malta the year after, and a couple of smaller
Wow.
international meets in between that. And it's been a blessing for a number of different reasons. One, just like you get that competitive athletic itch, if you
Yeah.
will. I feel like it also keeps me focused and grounded in my work, because in order to be great at that, like I have to watch my sleep, my nutrition, all those basic things that us
Yeah.
as business owners, we know that we need to do. But for the sake of our business, we say, okay, I'll just sleep 3 hours a day because I don't need to.
Yeah.
I'll eat a coffee and a donut for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and then I'll move on. But what I find is when I'm very regimented on everything outside of work, it forces me to be regimented in work, because that
Correct.
whole adage of like how you do one thing is how you do everything.
Yeah.
And so I think it blends pretty well. And, there's a lot of sports and athletic companies out there that also, need CFO work, accounting work,
Yeah,
finance
so
work.
it opened you up
And
to
so
a whole different demographic
Exactly.
of people at the same time.
Exactly.
And I really like what you said too. Like, regiment is so important. I could easily wake up every day, get 3 hours of sleep, do whatever I want at nighttime with my spare time, completely neglect my health. And I'm definitely no world champion in powerlifting or anything of that nature, but I do love exercise. I love basketball and playing sports and just being active. And I wake up every morning and I work out every day before work. I think it's extremely important, not only for the health aspect of it, for the physical health, but also too for like your mental health.
Absolutely.
To get up, let your body naturally release those, endorphins, the dopamine, and just stay in that cycle of getting up and doing the same thing every single day. And then, boom, you work out, then you take a shower, then you get dressed, you eat breakfast, then you're out the door, you go about your day at work, come home, kiss your kids on the head, eat dinner, do it, and then, you're in a rhythm.
Absolutely.
And humans, in my opinion, at least healthy humans, are all, high-performing humans, I should say at least, are all in some type of regimen.
Absolutely.
If you read any of those, especially with your background in the motivational speaking, if you read any context of like a billionaire or like a very successful businessman or businesswoman, they all have a regimented day from 4:30, and they're not sleeping until, people think like these people have all the money in the world. They sleep until 10 o'clock every morning and just stroll into their office. No, these people are up at like 4 or 5 in the morning, working out, reading a book, doing some sort of meditation, eating breakfast, and then going about their business day. And everything is structured based on being a healthier person.
Small little things done well over time.
100%. And that kind of dovetails, my next question. With your athletic journey and always, being focused on either competition or, some type of goal, how has that shaped you into the businessman you are today? How has that changed kind of like your trajectory in the business world, and what characteristics have you carried over, or traits have you carried over from that athletic competitive world to the business world to be as successful as you are?
It's interesting because there's 1,000 different ways that we can take that question, right? I think one, right, hey, like first appearance, right? If you show up in shape, well put together, et cetera, you kind of just start that engagement, that conversation, that relationship off to the right foot, right? If you show that you take care of yourself, then that's a reflection of how you just live your day-to-day life, right? You can't kind of cheat that, right? So I think there's just an underlying psychological thing that happened with humans where like you somebody that's in shape, good looking, well dressed, you just assume that they're doing something right. You don't know what it is, but just the underlying assumptions they've done something right, and the vice versa for not. And so there is like just an underlying psychological piece to it on that end that I think does just help. Like you walk into the room and you shake somebody's hand, you look them in the eye, and you're like, okay, just off of your energy, I can tell that there's some substance behind it. But also I think another thing that's extremely interesting is, hey, growing up playing football in every sport, and I'm sure you got this as well, you know, your coaches always say, hey, like when you get into the real world, you get into the workforce, like everybody's going to love you because you have a leg up on everybody else because you do these small incremental things day in and day out at a young age. So you're used to that type of structure. And what I find is that to be 100% true, right? Sports in any form is all determined on delayed gratification, right? Weeks, days, months, years of practice for one opportunity to do something special, right? And so most people are so used to Amazon, you put it in your cart and you might get it same day, next day at the latest, right? That they don't have the mental stamina to do those small incremental things done well again and again and again and again and again. And so from a business standpoint, when you own your own business, when you run your own business, that's even more true, right?
Yeah.
Just because you work the 40-hour week doesn't mean you get paid, right?
No, not
it just means you work the 40-hour week and hopefully the infrastructure allows you to get paid.
Yeah.
And so that's why a lot of people don't own their own business, because they want the guarantee of getting paid at the end of the day, because the short-term gain is more important to them than maybe whatever long-term vision they may or may not have, right? And so from a business owner standpoint, just the ability to have that mental stamina to be able to not reap the reward for work that was already done until a later time is very key. But also I think when it comes to just even interactions with clients, like I'm very results driven. Like the thing about sports is nobody cares how hard you tried.
No.
Right. When we're in elementary school with your kids and all this stuff, they do the participation trophies.
Yeah.
And you get to a certain age and there's no more participation trophy.
Yeah.
And the only thing that matters is first, second, and third. And really second and third is just the second and third person to lose. And like you
that's all it comes down to.
That's all it comes down to.
It all, like anything in life, you know, you're pretty much, the point you're trying to make is whether it's in business, in sports, you know, as a CFO, when you're looking at somebody's books, or for me, when I'm reviewing, you know, my sales team's quota, it's all numbers driven. If the numbers don't make sense, if you're on paper next to somebody and you're scoring, you know, 2 to 3 touchdowns a game, and the guy next to you is scoring 0 touchdowns a game, but he wakes up every day and works hard, no one cares.
Yeah.
They're like, whatever Delaney's doing is obviously better than whatever this guy's doing.
Like, what
because he's scoring 2 to 3 touchdowns a game.
Give me the results, right?
Exactly.
And so,
that's all it comes down to.
And so, especially in the business world, I think that gives me an extreme leg up, because I'm just used to, like, I never come to a client and say we tried. Like, you know, we did or we did not. And I think that's also just another key thing, that from just like a objective point of view, not caring so much about what the effort or the output was in terms of what it means to the client or to the business, and looking at the end result of it all. And so I'm very just results driven, the delayed gratification of it all. So again, that mental stamina to push through. Again, you know, powerlifting's an individual sport. I mean, when you're a part of, you know, Team USA, you're a part of like a bigger, you know, kind of piece there. But, you know, football, basketball, baseball, all those sports, being able to connect with people, being a captain, being able to lead people, talk to people in their tone of understanding, right?
What does leading people mean to you?
Leading people, I think it all comes down to communication. And the best communicators are people that can communicate a point to you in a way that you understand, which is something that I think is very key, that I've been able to learn and develop over the last few years. A lot of people think just because they speak intellectually, they use big words, or they're talking at you, that they're good communicators. But if I couldn't convey to you my point in a way that you can understand and have conviction to move forward with it, then I've just wasted all of our time and nothing. Again, going back to the result is nothing got done. And so being a good leader is being able to communicate and motivate your team members, your clients, your prospects, whoever, to understand what you're saying and then take that knowledge and have enough conviction behind that knowledge to then go forth and take action. And so I think that's also a key aspect to it that I think is very different in the way that we do business. It's all about action and helping our clients take action. It's just not, okay, here's your books and okay, sending your quarterly taxes. Okay, here's your books. Here's what's been happening. How can we make this more optimal?
Yeah.
How can we allow you to set up the processes and systems to allow this to be more optimal from a tax standpoint, from an efficiency standpoint? Do you have the wrong people in your business in the wrong seats? Maybe you have a great worker, but they're just not good in the seat that you have them, and then you move them over here, right? And so all of those pieces come into play when you get more into the weeds of all that.
Yeah, and I think, that speaks on, our generation as a whole. I think people want to be led.
Absolutely.
I think today's generation, if you go back to like the 70s and the 80s, everybody at the end of the day wants to be a boss, but I think back then it was more, male or female, it was just a masculine, the world was just very masculine in industry. Everybody wanted to be heard. Everything was screaming, yelling, smoking cigarettes at the desk, whatever it was. There was a lot of animosity.
Yeah.
And I think today, just the culture of business and industry in general, I think people want that one person or those couple of people in an organization to come and say, this is how you do it, this is the way you do it, and really guide them and kind of like bring the horse to the water. But now it's not just bring the horse to the water, it's help the horse drink the water. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I think it needs to be recognized because as, any industry you enter, there's ebb and flow. You know what I mean? So like back 30, 40 years ago, there might have been a lot of animosity, a lot of masculinity in the way business was done. But today, it's a completely different world, and leaders need to recognize that. It's not so much like, all right, Delaney, you have these tasks on your desk, get them done. It's a matter of, if I'm in a position of leadership, if you're in a position of leadership talking to your team, it's, all right, we have these tasks on our plate. How can we get them done together so the client so your workload is taken care of? What do you need from me? What advice do you need? What guidance do you need? And it's more or less like you're saying, like the team sport. How do we culminate everybody's skills to achieve the end goal?
Exactly.
And I think that's like a major thing. And that's why I kind of asked you to unpack what your ideas on leadership are, because I think that's the world we're in now, a world of mentorship and leadership.
Yeah, I mean, I think most people want to be led because they don't trust themselves to make the right decision. And so when you're the person making the decision, if it goes wrong, it also falls on you, right? Heavy is the head that wears the crown, right? But again, like it's, not to kind of shamelessly plug, but I think that that's where we come in to also help as well. There's also just a mental aspect of it that I'm not as emotional about your business as you are, right? Which has its pros and has its cons to it. But the pros to that are, I'm not going to make decisions solely off of pride or off of emotion. It's just objective. It's all objective data, right? Yeah. It's all just objective. Like, are we getting closer to the end destination or not? Which allows you to see a different angle or a different side of your business, opposed to being in the business all day, where sometimes the only way to see the bigger picture is to be able to zoom out. But if you're in it, it's hard for you to get on out, right?
Yeah.
And so it just allows another point of view, another area to kind of look at, and again, to the point of just allowing the horse to get to the water and also helping them drink, and letting them make the indecision at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's very important. So I know before we were chatting a little bit about an endeavor that you're currently working on, which kind of interested me because obviously, we're in two completely different industries and we cater to, different needs. We may work with similar people, but you're building out financial plans for people. And, on a day-to-day basis, I'm working on building out, electrical risk mitigation strategies for people, to make sure there's no building fires, hazards, or, any kind of business interruptions and things of that nature. So, we're both working in completely different areas of the world, but at the same time, we're offering a service to people to help them.
Yeah.
So I think, somewhere where our paths, cross a little bit, you were talking a little bit about the gym that you're working on opening up, which sounds awesome.
Yeah.
And I know you said you're kind of dealing with like the development of the gym and the space and, some of the construction aspects of it. So why don't you tell us a little bit about, the gym you're opening up, what your role with the gym is going to be, and also what interaction you've had on like the kind of construction and development side, look into that. What does that look like to you from the outside?
Yeah, absolutely. I guess to give some context to everybody listening, so I work out at this gym called Mount Vernon Barbell here in Mount Vernon, New York. And not too long ago, I was approached by the owner to potentially, buy in and be a part owner of the new location that's going to be popping up, hopefully, October-ish type of deal. So if you guys are in the area, come through. In terms of like my role, just because obviously I already have a decent amount on my plate, it's more so, again, doing what I do on the finance back end, right? So making sure like the infrastructure is set up correctly, tax mitigation strategy, things of that nature. But then also just from a standpoint of you win 2 world championships and people tend to recognize you in that realm to a degree. So there's a little bit of just kind of like marketing and being the face of it. That's on that awesome. Front. In terms of just like the build out, so this is the first time that I have personally been hands-on when it comes to essentially to a degree building out something from scratch. Like the building's there, but like a lot of things need to be gutted. It needs new HVAC, it needs new flooring, plumbing, the whole 9 yards. It just needs to get gutted. And so it's very interesting because I get to connect with people on a different side of the table than I usually do. And I realize that not all businesses necessarily have the same type of structure that like we do in like the finance realm, right? Mm-hmm. You say something's on the calendar, I'm there at 1:00, right? Like I'm there, a couple minutes early, whatever the case may be. An architect says he's going to meet you at 2:00. It might be 2:00, might be 2:45. Might be never, might call him and say, oh yeah, something came up, so it's always interesting to see like just like different business accliments, and apparently that's relatively common for architects.
It's actually funny that you say that because one of the things that we like pride ourselves on, for you, it's like 1:00's 1:00 and that's it. And I have the same moral belief as you when it comes to like time management and giving somebody your word. Like I tell people all the time, as humans, we don't have control over a lot, but one thing we have control over is our time. And when we say we're going to do something, we actually do it. So like our time and our word. Yeah. And that's kind of like one of the core values of Lepolis Electric is Absolutely. Customer service and customer satisfaction. Mm-hmm. And a part of that is not being that architect or that construction company that like you just spoke of where they say, yeah, we'll be there at 1:00 and then they just never show up. Like, no, if I tell you I'm going to be somewhere like 1:00, I'm going to be there at 12:30. I'll be there at 12:00, because I truly believe like that is so important. Like it comes down to just like, if you tell somebody a time that you're going to do something, it's just rude to not show up or to even be 5 minutes late.
Absolutely.
So I like that. I like that you actually brought that up because it's true. Like in that whole contracting world, that's like one little thing that we do so well that sets us apart from like 90% of the other contractors.
Oh, it drives me nuts.
Just because we're always on time,
drives me absolutely bonkers.
I bet it does.
Especially just because, for better or for worse, like my schedule gets pretty packed. So there are days where it's like a 10-minute discrepancy threw off the whole ecosystem of like how my calendar is supposed to get set, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's one interesting piece to the puzzle. In terms of like some of the nitty-gritty of things, I didn't know HVAC was as expensive. I know that we were all talking before, and Fran said, most people just think it's, plug in an AC unit and you're good. Yeah. But HVAC gets pretty expensive and it's comprehensive, and that process is all very, very interesting. I also found out that certain codes, when you're adding like certain ancillary businesses to things, like which businesses are a little bit more strict than others. Like the The regulations around like having a smoothie bar or building a smoothie bar are way less strict than trying to open like a small barber shop. Because that was one idea that we
Really?
had, and there's a lot of like red tape around there that you have to make sure is good on that front. So just small like like small little things and details
Very
that pop
interesting.
up that you learn along the way, just through research and banging your head against the wall. So but yeah, I mean that process is it's been pretty cool. I'm not too into the construction side of things. My partners, they actually work in construction to a degree, so
Oh, very nice.
that's kind of their forte, and they let me, marketing, finance, money
And
management.
that's
That's my forte.
and that goes back to what we were talking about before. That's the beauty of a team. If everybody's talking, everyone's communicating, you all work in harmony and do what you're best at.
Exactly. I believe, and I think it's probably an ego thing. Everybody loves to be everything to everyone. And I don't necessarily want to be everything to everyone. I can have my team be everything to everyone, but it's not me that's doing every single small, minute detail because at some point in time, I no longer become the master of that detail, right?
Yeah.
And so I really pride myself, whether it be with the outsourced CFO work that we do, like we have a team, a comprehensive infrastructure in the back end that it's not just my word. It's the accountants, it's the other bookkeepers, it's the controllers, it's the CPAs, it's the tax people, the lawyers, everybody that we have on the back end. And a lot of times for my clients, I'm the vessel that's taking all of this complex data and building it together in a way that you can digest it and then go forth and take it to the real world. And in any partnership, in any business, I mean, even why not you media? It's a team,
Yep.
right? And the reason why it's like that, and the reason they're successful, is because everybody has their lane that they're good at, and they just thrive in that lane and don't worry about the others, right? And so I genuinely believe in good teamwork. The team that you build is extremely important. That's why I think, which is very different than just like basic financial planning and true business, like outsourced CFO planning, is also not just looking at the numbers, but also looking at the people and where their strengths are and where their weaknesses are to make sure that the business is running efficiently. A good team can blow you up to the moon. A bad team can put you in your grave, right?
Yeah.
And so there's both sides of the coin there.
Very interesting. So, obviously that's a lot, when it comes to the team. I mean, we could sit here and talk about, cohesiveness and coexisting and how a team should operate for hours. I mean, because
Yeah.
there's so many different complex levels to, the team aspect in business, so to speak. But I want to shift gears a little bit because I know you did say you get involved with motivational speaking, and different types of like, mindset conversations. So like, whether it's business or sports or doing something in your personal life, what type of mindset do you like to be in when you're really focused on something? And if you're to your listeners and to everybody listening now, how important is mindset on a day-to-day basis?
I mean, mindset is absolutely everything, right? In sports or in track, right? We were taught this saying that goes, the body goes where the head goes, right? And that's just like a physical thing. If your head's going this way, your body's going to follow it. But also, if you just take that deeper and you say, okay, well, where your mind is where your actions and everything else are going to follow. It's the same concept, right? In terms of mindset, there's this saying that I forget where I got it from, but there's this saying that always kind of goes through in my head, whether it's sports, whether it's business, whether it's whatever that I'm doing at that point in time, that really always just gets me in the right frame of mind of whatever it is I have to do. Like it just has to get done. Like we have
Yeah.
to do it. And the quote kind of goes like this. It goes, to each of us will come a special moment in our life where we are figuratively tapped on the shoulder and offered a chance to do a special thing, unique to only us and fitted directly to our talents. What a tragedy if that moment finds us unprepared or ill qualified for that of which could have been our finest moment. And for me, when you break that down, it's just a constant reminder that we never know when God, if you believe in God or whatever higher being or whatever, is going to provide us with the opportunity to be everything that we wanted to be or more, right? And again, going back to the very end, what a tragedy if that moment finds us unprepared or ill qualified for something that could have been our finest moment. And so whenever I look at paperwork that needs to be done or a call that needs to be made, or if I'm in the gym and you're talking athletically in a set that I don't want to do, or I want to go home because work is killing me and somebody just emailed me and the house is blowing up, right? Right. What a tragedy if this moment right here is the preparation that I needed for the finest moment of my life, right? For the biggest opportunity that has still yet to reveal itself. And so for me, that's just my daily reminder when it comes to mindset, that every little single thing that you do matters and has an impact. And so you have to grade every action, every encounter, everything that you do as such, right? Is this an opportunity for me to grow or get better at my craft or at my vision, whatever it is that I'm talking about? Or is it something that's pulling me farther away from it? And if the answer is, hey, it's something that is actually there to make you better, then you have to go forth and do it. If it's something that's pulling you back, then you have to, again, pull back from that. And so when I go to mindset, I think that quote really kind of gets me in that mental frame, because it's very comprehensive in the sense of like it covers virtually everything that you can think about.
Does.
Right. I don't want to wake up in the morning and work out because I'm tired today. Well, what if being in the right frame of mind, being physically fit and being in that frame is what you needed in order to shake the hand of that one person that was going to recognize that, yeah, you're the one person in this business meeting that doesn't look sloppy. And that was a connection that sprungboard you to the next stage of your career, your business, right?
Yep.
What if the date night with wifey that you didn't want to actually do was that one moment that you needed in order to bond with her even more, to take your relationship and your family to the next level? What if that business call that seems like it's not that big of a deal because it's a small client and whatever, and we're just going to push him off, was potentially the person that could have referred you to that multi-million-dollar business, that contract, right? What if?
You go down the road.
Then you just keep on going down the rabbit hole, and at the end of the day, you just get to the final discussion of whether I feel like doing it or not. I should do it. I should just move forward. And it goes back to small incremental things done well over time.
Yeah.
Right.
That was a great, phrase that you just put out there. You, like you said, you could take so much from that, don't quit before the miracle happens, kind of, really what it sounds like, and I deal with it on a daily basis. It's not, what I do is not simple in any way, shape, or form, in terms of business, and I'm keeping it on myself because I'm very aware of the technicalities that I deal with on a daily basis. And it's not just product technicalities. On a day-to-day basis, we're dealing with different personalities. We're dealing with, different obstacles and objections. We're dealing with the natural technicalities or whatever it is we may be doing in our business. Making sure people are happy and, customer satisfaction, meeting deadlines. There's so many layers that it's very easy to get into that mindset of, I don't want to answer the phone right now, or, I could really use this extra 30 minutes of sleep in the morning, or whatever it is to try and
Rationalize not doing what you should
exactly why I shouldn't do something. But it's getting uncomfortable to be comfortable is what makes a very big difference on my day-to-day. Like, if I always tell myself, like, if my body or my mind is telling me not to do something because it's going to make me uncomfortable, I got to do it in that moment. Like, if I'm saying like shit, man, it's 5:00, my alarm's going off. I do not want to work out right now. Like, I could snooze this thing until 6:30, get up, shower, go right to work. I'm like, no, drop my legs out of bed and, throw my gym clothes on and get going.
Absolutely.
In that moment, that is where you need to manipulate your mind, and with that mental manipulation on yourself, it's gonna help you grow to be a better version of yourself for that day. And then 9 times out of 10, I get up, I work out, I wake up, the blood gets flowing. By the time I'm done with my shower after I exercise, I'm like, I feel great right now, and I could conquer the world.
It is, not to interrupt you, but in some of like my talks, I discuss this a little bit. Going back to that phrase that I told you about, why most people want to be led because they don't trust themselves to make the right decisions. A lot of that is because we know what we do when nobody's watching, right? We know the corners that we cut. We know the things that, we said we were going to do that we didn't. And so there is this air of confidence that comes from being able to look yourself in the mirror and believe the words that come out of your mouth, because most people don't. And so when you say, hey, 5 days a week at 5 a.m., I'm going to wake up and go to the gym, and you only do 3, look yourself in the mirror, you're like, you still might look good, but you know you didn't really keep the promise to yourself, right? Nobody else might know. Like, I don't know. Steve don't know. Fran don't know. But when you look in the mirror and you say, I said I was going to wake up at 5 a.m. and it was hard as hell, but I did it. That mental like fortitude that comes with that confidence that comes with that, when you look your opponent in the mirror or in the face and you guys have a business deal and you guys are both, fighting for this client, there's this air of there's no way that you are better than me because I've given everything and I know that you don't have the stamina to do that. Right. So whether it's athletically or business wise, like that, it also just sets the precedence and the tone. And then that energy and that confidence also comes and radiates from you. And you'll be surprised at what happens just simply off of that as well.
And that's kind of what I was getting to. It's like that mental push of waking up every day to exercise. I truly believe one of the hardest things to do first thing in the morning is exercising.
Absolutely.
Like it's like you're tired, your blood's not moving yet, you've put no nutrients in your body at that point to fuel yourself. And if you could, and I really truly feel if you could push yourself to get up and run or lift some weights or whatever it is that you do at that time in the morning, you're conditioning not only your body, but you're callousing your mind mentally. And that alone is going to give you an advantage over so many people in this world, because now, like when I've had some opportunities where I wanted to put together, a building electrical preventative maintenance program for a massive tower in like Long Island City, and the only time of the day that I was able to go and view the areas of the building that I needed to view was legitimately at 4:30 in the morning. I was like, I'm getting up at 3 a.m. I'm out of the house by 3:30. I'm in Long Island City by 4:30 a.m. to walk this building. I'm not second guessing myself.
But everybody else is.
Exactly. And when you say like now, when you have me or my competitor, I had no competitors on that job because I was the only person that showed up at 4:30 in the morning to go and look at this project. Because I am in that regiment daily of getting up early and challenging myself mentally to be a better version of myself every single day. Not only for me, for my family, for my company, for my coworkers, for everybody around me. Because I truly believe if I'm a better person for myself, I can give to other people.
Absolutely.
And I think that's, a major misconception people have when it comes to life. Everybody thinks they're going to just wake up and the fruits of life are going to just be put in front of them. Like, that's not how it works. Any successful person in this world works so hard for what they have, no matter what it looks like.
Absolutely.
Take a billionaire. They got the houses, the sport cars, the this, the that. That's all people see. People don't see the years of failure and hard work and heartache and, loss of family that go into getting there.
Absolutely.
It's people only see the glory and then they judge you for it.
Absolutely.
So it's funny, but it's really nice to speak to someone in this generation and kind of have that same understanding of like what it takes overall, because that mindset, that mental push is really what it takes to be successful.
And the crazy part is the air gets thinner the higher you go. And not many people can breathe once you get to a certain altitude. And so once you start to get to a certain point, you realize there's really no competition out there. So to your point, you were there at 4:30. You were probably, like you said, you're the only person. There is no competition there. Air's thin.
That's
it. You
it.
can breathe. And so it's also a very interesting thing that, I've seen physically as well as, professionally, where just like the higher and higher you start to climb, the easier the climb, because not that it's easy, but the easier it feels. One, just because you're used to just doing the work at that point in time, but you also just realize that there's a whole lot less people applying to be the CEO of Apple, Amazon, or Google than there is for the cashier job. Less people are qualified, so you're fighting less people, and so there's a sense of it starts to get easier the higher you go to, just simply off of there's less people to fight.
There's less people to fight. There is less people qualified when you get to a high performing level, and also people don't believe in themselves. And that's really what it comes down to. It's, on paper, you know, certain people, do you take the resume or do you take the mindset? Is the person qualified on paper, but do they have the mental capacity to do what it's going to take every day to achieve the goals that need to be achieved?
Absolutely.
And I think that's a big thing, in today's era of business and life in general of, people are starting to look more at mindset and the willingness of the worker over the resume and actual accomplishments on paper.
Well, yeah, and that's a key thing that we discuss a lot when I keep on talking about like the right person in the wrong seat. It's like, hey, you might be qualified on paper, but what are the small fundamental things that you need professionally or mentally or whatever that the establishment themselves have stated is important to them that makes you good at this specific job within the company, or do you need to be somewhere else, right? And so sometimes it's not as black and white. And to your point, like you're dealing with people's egos, you're dealing with people's emotions, you're dealing with their families and a bunch of different other attributes and variables. And so it's extremely important.
Very important. Listen, I think we're out of time today. I want to thank you again, Delaney, for
absolutely, brother,
coming out here and chatting with me.
Yes, sir.
And I want to thank all the listeners that tuned in today's episode of the Beyond the Blueprint podcast. Again, I'm your host, Stephen Marcelino. Thank you for watching.